Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. This is not your regularly scheduled stream. This is, of course, a different stream. This is an emergency stream. There has been an incident and we are having a post-incident stream. We have had to flee, obviously, like all of you, down into the bunker. And so we can't do our regularly scheduled stream. And we're just going to have to work out off whatever film we can find around here in the bunker. I don't know if I stocked this well. Okay, they don't have the film we were going to talk about, so... Oh, I mean, I found this. This looks interesting, Murgoot. Have you ever heard of Zardoz?
Zardoz speaks to you.
Yeah, that was a drunken college night movie.
Let's do it, man. I mean, it's got Sean Connery. How bad can it be?
Just ask him. Well,
All
he's dead now, but yeah.
All right, well, Zardoz is the first bunker stream. Let's do it. All right, this was a member request, by the way, and Eid, I hope, hoffentlich gefällt es dir ganz gut. Das war mir ein Albtraum. But for you, I hope this is what you hoped for. This was an experience. Murgoot, you were saying you have seen Zardoz before.
Yes. I vaguely remembered it, mainly the memeable ones. I knew it was loads of boobies. That's about all I remembered that in the red diaper.
Why does Sean Connery have top billing in this film? Clearly, soapy boobs needs to be top billing because they were never off the screen. This film is a savior to anyone who broke their rewind button on Wild Things and Basic Instinct. You don't have to rewind. Give it a minute. There'll be more boobs in this film. It is special. Okay, I mean, I hadn't seen it before it was requested. Its reputation somewhat preceded it for me. I knew it from the meme. Okay, I knew it from the meme, and so we've done member requests on this channel that wouldn't be what I would have typically covered. We have done Plan 9 from Outer Space, and I thought we're heading in for this, but you know, I'm just going to say it now. I enjoyed Zardoz. I don't know if it's all the Lynch watching. I don't know if it's all the Kubrick research work, but I'm enjoying a film that maybe is a little bit odd, but requires you to interpret it to get all the richness out. I ended up having a really good time with this film. Not just because of the copious memories, although, let's be honest, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the story's actually pretty good. The execution, on the other hand,
okay.
Foreman was high when he directed this and wrote it. Actually,
what made you think that?
He wrote it. I think he was sober when he wrote it and was high as balls when he filmed it.
Yeah, this really does have the vibe of just a different time in filmmaking when studios could not get in there, could not interfere. Because the stuff in this film, this would have been like test screeninged out of existence. And I'm so glad it wasn't.
This is very experimental for mainstream.
Very. I mean, I think something that probably helped it is that Zardoz, I think it was riding the waves of 2001. And that's very instructive because 2001 was kind of made for two audiences. There were the sort of Kubrick, big brain thinkers who like the clues, who want to interpret. But Kubrick very much knew that in order to work with the studios, he had to be able to guarantee a wider audience. And so 2001 was kind of marketed to the sci-fi big brain audience, but also to the stoners. Like if you look at the posters, you've got the one that says that's just very dry satellite detail, and then there's the one that says 2001: A Space Odyssey is the trip of a lifetime. Wink, wink, audience. The trip. Do you get it? Get high in the back row, bro. That's what it was doing, and that strategy absolutely helped. And I think Zardoz, given that it explicitly mentions 2001 on its posters, I think it was leaning for that audience as well a bit. Sort of, come in, this will be a sort of a brain melting experience. But at the same time, I think there are some really interesting ideas in this film.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you that. It brings up a lot of things you need to think about, but jeez Louise.
Yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen Zardoz, shall we give you a taste of the opening weirdness? Murgoot, there is a wonderful speech that I think will stick with me the rest of my days, given within the first few minutes of the film. I think they might be the first lines you hear apart from "Hail Zardoz." Would you care to read the speech?
Yeah, I'll give it a little bit of a preface too. It's 2293 and it opens with what's his name? Arthur Friend giving a monologue talking about how the Eternals are seeking death and everything is not what it seems. And then it breaks to a floating head coming in and talks about it's 2293 and there are the brutals, the farmers, and then there's the brutal executioners, the exterminators who kill off the farmers when need be. And then there are the Eternals who live in the vortex and they're immortal. And then the head comes down and he gives a rousing speech to a band of exterminators.
What gets him fired up for a good hard day of exterminating?
Yeah. Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones. We are the chosen ones. You have been raised up from brutality to kill the brutals who multiply under legion. To this end, Zardoz, your god, gave you the gift of the gun. The gun is good. The gun is good. The penis is evil. The penis shoots seeds and makes new life to poison the earth with a plague of men as it once was. But the gun shoots death and purifies the earth of the filth of brutals. Go forth and kill. Zardoz has spoken. And then a bunch
Hail
of
Zardoz.
pour out of the concrete head.
It's quite unforgettable.
The gun is good. The penis is bad. I'm just like, oh, this is inauspicious. This is going to be a wild ride.
You know, beneath all the sort of script written with the subtlety of an art student's first go, there's some nifty stuff in there, even from the beginning. Okay, like it's a weird opening, like Arthur Frayne, who we see coming up as just another disembodied head on a black background. As he gets closer, when you notice his beard and mustache are drawn on with a marker pen, you just think, what on earth is going on there? He gives an interesting speech about the artifice, but we go from his floating head with the false beard, obviously talking about falsity, etc., to this floating head. I think we're making the connection. Oh, okay, he is this guy, and the floating head is him, and the floating head is not what it seems because it's him. There's an element of trickery with it.
Yeah. Well,
So
all
like,
the exterminators who worship Zardoz run around with paper mache clay
mm,
masks of Zardoz when they're exterminating people. That and they're running around in red diapers.
yeah, that alone, I think, like there's a subtle thing and there's the outlandish, just but they're cluing you in. Like there's a little more going on here.
Yeah.
That it's weird imagery, but it's weird imagery to a purpose. Um,
And then Zed, the lead exterminator, he chants out and he picks up. He doesn't pick up a gun. He uses the gun he does and shoots the cameraman like
mm,
cameraman is a brutal. And then the next thing you know, he comes out of a pile of grain inside the head, gun first, of course.
mm. And given that we've just heard about the evils of the penis, which spread seed, we then see him emerging from a pile of seed.
Yeah,
Hmm.
with the ultimate in phallic objects.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I found it interesting. Those, what would you call the straps he's wearing? I won't say like bandoliers. Would you call them that?
Yeah, they're bandoliers
Like
with
those are.
rifle rounds, even though he carries around a Webley pistol.
Thank you, thank you. That was bugging me the whole film. Murgoot, he can't use those bullets in that gun. Where is he keeping the bullets, Murgoot?
I don't
Where's
know.
he
He
keeping
never
the bullets?
reloads. I take that back. He only reloads once, and from there on, he uses it a lot.
Hmm. Yes. This is rather unforgettable imagery. As I said, I knew this from the meme. I think Rick and Morty were rather uh, gleefully parodying this up by just featuring elements of it straight up. I don't know
I
if it
miss
even counts
Rick
as a
and
parody.
Morty, so I never really watched Rick and Morty, so it sounds like I missed quite a bit of the meme.
I mean, it was more just, yeah, repeating elements straight up, so it doesn't seem all that parodied, but that's kind of where I knew it from. I knew this iconic imagery. Um, and so I kind of thought this was a meme watch, but this drew me in. There's interesting stuff in it. It is bizarre. It is kind of like a fever dream. There are elements that you cannot believe a studio paid money for them to do, but it certainly keeps the attention.
Yeah,
I was reading on the Wikipedia that apparently Stanley Kubrick, and forgive me for Kubrick posting, you can tell where most of my research is at the moment. Apparently, he was an uncredited technical advisor while they were filming, because he'd have been working on Barry Lyndon at the same time that they were working on Zardoz, both in Ireland, both having a large amount of trouble with bringing in rifles to the country at the time. Um, I'd like to believe that, I'd like to believe that was true.
I have no clue. Really don't. But all those rifles looked antique to me.
A little bit. There was some interesting, like World War II style machine guns. I thought was being chucked out of the mouth for the exterminators to enjoy. I'm gonna take. I've got to take Sean off. I can't. I need to go back to. We're gonna go back to the head. All right. Like memes aside, it's so tempting to just do the memes on this, but this is a really interesting movie, and there are some ideas in it that I think we really liked. Like they pitch it as beyond 1980. This was on the poster. Beyond 1984, beyond 2001. So you've got that idea on one level. This film is just trippy and meant to have confusing imagery. But on the other, because I'm mentioning 1984, they're telling you something, that there is meant to be some kind of dystopian message here. And I think the dystopia they built in this film is really quite a cut above most of them. Um, Do you want me to go into that quickly?
Go for it.
So the scenario, and correct me if I mangle this, but the scenario is that your boy Zed, Sean Connery, manages to hitch a ride inside the giant stone head, having shot Arthur Frayne, who's the man we see in the beginning, and he gets into the realm of the Eternals, the faction that we've seen. One of the first things he sees when he sneaks inside the kind of idyllic country manor farmhouse area that the Eternals are living in is that there's a sort of chart of evolution on the walls. So on the painted on the wall, you've got the sort of Neanderthals and pre-Neanderthals, then Homo sapiens, then Eternals who are wearing the same headgear that Arthur Frayne was. So, oh, okay, right, he's a whole species. Okay, interesting. And then there's a big gap after that with a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Very that felt like a very 2001 touch. I mean, the idea is already okay. You've reached some kind of evolutionary pinnacle, but you're going to go beyond it. That's interesting. But in this dystopia, the Eternals have got an area that, through technology, through effectively an artificial intelligence, very much like HAL 9000.
Tabernacle.
Yes, the Tabernacle. Thank you. They've secured their area. They've conquered death. And outside the realm is basically brutal savages who aren't blessed by wonderful enlightenment. And a lot of films would kind of leave it there. But this film starts asking some interesting questions about, okay, what happens when you can't die? And you find out that the Eternals don't have this kind of idyllic age. Their post-scarcity doesn't result in paradise at all. They have a whole bunch of problems. And I couldn't, in fact, in many ways, they're longing for death. The lack of effectively meaning and struggle in their life because they cannot die means that a whole bunch of them have developed this case of basically apathy. They're called the apathetics, and they just stop responding to any stimulus. The only real punishment they have is being aged, but you still don't die.
Aged, yeah.
Yeah, so they have the
They turn them into the
faction.
renegades, those that have rebelled, and turns out most of them are the old scientists who couldn't let go, and they're aged to the point of, as they put it, they won't die, but they're aged to the point of senility.
And that had some horrifying sequences that made me think of Mulholland Drive, where like being pursued by the very old people. My gosh, I got Mulholland Drive vibes off that. And I don't know if Borman had read the sort of Great Mouse Utopia experiments. I don't think there's any way he could have. It would be amazing if he had. But this was a bit of a thing that went round in, say, certain circles a few years ago. People looked at the Mouse Utopia experiments where, forgive me for not looking it up, but not recalling the name, but scientists basically provided mice and rats with everything they needed, secure, safe environment, and watched what happened. That environment, is basically the one the Eternals live in. They've got all their needs met. There's no physical threat to them. All the food they need. What's going to happen? And the society for the mice, and certainly the Eternals as well, their numbers swelled. But then it started to break down. They started to have dysfunction. One of the things they observed in the Mouse Utopia experiments were what they called the beautiful ones. So they saw a sort of general feminizing, and a whole bunch of the males just sort of stopped breeding and spent all their time grooming. And John Borman in Zardoz, it seems like the weirdest coincidence, but he's created one where basically the Eternals have all basically feminized. Like they're very, very, I was going to say they're androgynous, but it's more like the women seem like they are regular and quite feminine, maybe slightly more assertive than the men. And the men have gone just in a more feminine direction. Like,
to the point that they can't breed. They're impotent fully.
totally, yeah. They're absolutely bemused by the savage's ability to become engorged in one
Yeah.
of the most baffling sequences of the film.
As an offshoot of the Mouse Utopia, he may not have read that one,
Mm.
but I can. He probably read Paul Ehrlich's Population Bomb, which was published in 68 or 69, I believe, maybe
Mm.
1970, talking about how human overpopulation will kill the world. And I think because they touch on some of the points that man has overgrown the world and destroyed the world, and we must exterminate them to preserve the earth. And that's straight out of Paul Ehrlich.
Do you say that was 1968?
1968 to 1970.
I'm just looking at the Mouse Utopia experiment was by John Calhoun, and that was 1968 as well.
Population Bomb, 1968.
So do you think that's maybe a sort of facet of, because this just seems like such a good predictor. Like, it's weird to be watching Zardoz in 2024, and you've got the sort of enlightened, basically enlightened aristocracy, which is designed. The big problem is excessive breeding.
Mhm.
You need to cull. We need to get that population down. We need to depopulate.
Well, the
I mean,
Population Bomb was a big popular bestseller around that time, so I wouldn't be surprised if Borman didn't read it, because Ehrlich was a big cause celebre for several years. He still is to a point, but he's basically been debunked, but people are still using him, using the Malthusian equations, which just don't stack up because of modern farming practices.
they always, I mean, they work given technology at the time, but I would think the constant problem is failure to account for technological innovation. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Malthusian equations basically became obsolete in between the 1930s and the 1950s when industrial agriculture and industrial fertilizer became a big thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the plot points is, the farming, that kind of thing.
Yes, there's a bit of a scandal among the Eternals as they find out that Arthur Frayne, who is Zardoz, who is in charge of this head that's going out and encouraging the exterminators, was also encouraging them to farm and keep that quiet from the Eternals. He's effectively, as I understood it, he was trying to actually build up the brutals outside.
Well, for better farming, because he could bring a lot of grain in that they needed to live instead of going to another vortex. So,
these themes, though, that are written in, they just seem incredibly current. Like, they've got this amazing predictive power.
yeah. Looking at it, Ehrlich's becoming more popular and people are actually shouting him down now, which is a good thing. But I don't know. Enough on that. Let's get back to the comedy.
Like the scene where they have Connery in and they're just sort of fascinated by the fact that he can still
Yeah.
as we we're saying, the thing where they've all become very feminized, all androgynous at the least, but I would say just straight up feminized. It's more matriarchy consensus, longhouse, you might say, in the Eternals. This thing that looks idyllic, you find out actually is a culture of some quite punishing conformity. They don't shoot you, they don't crack the whip on you, but if you fall out of line, they do issue their own punishment.
Yeah, you notice all the women have tube tops or high bodices, and
Mm,
all the men are in pastel colored tunics and tights.
mm,
It's kind of a reversal of things until Arthur gets punished and aged, and then he wears tuxedo.
is that
Renegades are allowed to dress the way they want.
is that it's the
That's
friend,
Zardoz.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Friend,
other
not
friend.
Zardoz. I think
Right.
it's when friend gets punished and he's half aged, or am I
You're
confused
right.
that
He gets half
there
aged
we
and
go.
he switches from the tunic and
Mm,
tights over to a tuxedo.
yeah. He's kind of interesting because he was resisting the consensus, and it's not a scene that I think works particularly well for a modern audience. Basically, I think it comes off as just unintentionally hilarious. But where he's sort of resisting them around the table and they're all basically wiggling their fingers at him, trying to force him to join their meditating. I mean, it is effectively like a struggle session, isn't it? But it's just presented in a way that is, I don't know,
Hilarious.
hilarious. Like, I think the idea is fascinating. The idea is prescient. The presentation is where it ends up in a weird place. But
Yeah.
yeah, you notice that you said they're all in pastel colors. That is so interesting. Again, it's this idea of the Eternals have moderated. They've gone down. They're kind of lifeless, sterile. Um, like when Zed is walking around their place, you have this weirdness of the plants are wrapped in these grow bags, these bubbles, basically. And
Mhm.
it struck me as just like a weird bit of imagery that I was trying to get my head around. And then I thought, hang on, no, it's more like this constant safety culture, the idea that everything lives in a bubble, everything
Everything
is
lives in a
overprotected.
bubble, and if you die, you get cloned and forced to
Mm,
come back to
yeah.
where you were. And then when he's introduced around and Friend shows him the apathetics,
Mm,
and Zed's like, "What's wrong with them?" Well, they're apathetic. They're don't. You can do what you like to them, and nothing will happen. And Zed gropes one of the prettier apathetics and throws her in the hay and kisses her and starts mauling her, and then she wakes up afterwards, and it's the has a moment of clarity, wakes up, and then eventually fades back to apathy.
mm,
And she comes in later on in the movie when it's your kiss brings life,
mm.
and all the apathetics gather around him, and they all share the kiss. And
It's
that's just,
and very, very progressively, everyone is backing on everyone. You go
yeah,
from just they're passing it on, and then you get to, oh, woman on woman, okay, and again, and then okay, woman to man, then man to man, and they just keep passing it through. And like, oh, very progressive, woman. Um, I mean, the logic of the film is perfect, but that let's maybe stick on that scene and that idea because that is obviously it's a deeply problematic scene. Tut tut tut. Anyway, what do you think the idea behind it was that they were trying to get with the sort of visit to the apathetics and throwing her in the hay?
um,
Sorry if I'm springing that on you.
basically it's showing the they're missing the spark, and the spark is sexuality. Um,
Mm,
and yes, it's harsh, but he softens up and kisses her, and she starts waking up. Granted, she falls back to it, but she does wake up for a bit when she gets the sensuality and the sexuality introduced to her. It's
Mm.
what she was missing, why she became apathetic.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
the point he's
Totally agree. Totally agree. I'd maybe broaden it a bit. I think it's comfort. It's comfort brings the apathy. You These are completely provided for people with no risk. They live eternally. They've got all the knowledge. They're not really striving for anything. And so yeah, they become apathetic. So when they're presented with something um, vital and rough and challenging, they start to wake up a bit. They find that appealing, even when it's something as, frankly, quite unpleasant to see, of Zed ravaging a couple of women and then going on his sort of very primal instinct to, what I think Friend said, just take her, which is a
Yeah.
language, that's the kind of language I think of in say, a Shakespeare play, is they just say he took her. Um, and you can infer the rest. But she does respond to that, and that could provoke absolute outrage. But I think it's very clear what the film is saying is challenge, struggle, strife, difficulty, and danger. They
They
might be scary, they might be unpleasant, but that's what being alive is. If you remove those, you're basically not alive. You're basically in a walking coma, which is what the Eternals basically are. They're all in these pastel colors, devoid of life, devoid of passion. And Zed is there, standing out by being this virile, extremely masculine, wearing very vibrant colors. You know,
vitality.
exactly. I mean, it's quite a thing to see a film unambiguously praising that vitality.
Hmm. The virility of man
Mm,
is necessary for the world. It's
yeah, they
uh,
they they need the basically the dangerous masculine vitalism. Um, they can't have it completely ruled by this sort of longhouse consensus. And they find themselves basically craving danger, excitement, vitality,
yeah.
and being
Well,
fascinated by it.
tabernacles tabernacles the perfect protector. Too perfect. It takes away all motivation besides food and I mean the basics of life are there, but it protects them from themselves, protects them from the vital link,
Mm,
actual living.
yeah, one of the things that, again, this film is meme fodder, but there is really good symbolism in here. It is telling you what it's getting at really effectively. One of the first things you see when Zed is going around is he sees a bunch of the Eternals standing in trees, and it's kind of like they're just growing on the tree,
Uh-huh.
as in they aren't flesh and blood beings. They're more just like they're more like plants. Um, and it got me thinking of, if you've heard the Japanese term the herbivore men.
The grass eaters.
Yeah, yeah. It got
Um,
me thinking.
Hikikomori, I believe.
Yeah, well, I think that might be the more negative phenomenon, but like, yeah, the grass eaters is the more retreated from society. mm,
Hmm.
well, basically living like the Eternals, just not taking part in anything, not pursuing relationships, playing it safe, voluntarily going for the pod. And I just thought that use of calling them herbivores and then seeing the Eternals basically be up in a tree like they were just plants, instead of, you're compared to Zed when you see him out hunting, out killing, and then out ravishing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
it's not pleasant, but
like
he's
it's
alive.
mentioned later on in the film. Friend and Zar, Friend and Zed are talking about the grain, and was it Zed? Was it Friend? Zed was talking to somebody, and they're like, "Well, all the fruits and food are provided. I don't eat grain. I eat meat."
Mm. Oh yeah, I
And
caught that. You only see them eating fruit?
uh-huh, fruit and grain and root vegetables. No meat.
Yeah, I thought that was quite striking, actually, quite striking. Because again, it's Borman who, of course, wrote this, directed it, and I think produced it. So he got the triple on this. This is very much his vision. Um,
Yeah.
I have this of him with Excalibur. Oh, what a badass! What a badass! He
Yeah.
said an interesting thing of this. Since it's getting reappraised, we are reappraising it right now, Murgoot. We are coming out swinging for Zardoz. Um, he said when he was doing the audio commentary for this in the 2000s that basically it kind of surprised him that it had been picked up again as a cult classic because it had come out. It went from being a failure to a classic without ever being a success, which I thought was some good framing. And he's
Yeah.
an interesting director, no doubt.
Well, he tried a couple of times to write and direct the treatment of Lord of the Rings, and boy, am I glad he didn't.
Mm,
Um, Although Excalibur, when he did Excalibur, that was a masterpiece.
mm.
Acid Trip of a masterpiece, but masterpiece all the same.
I need to see it again, but I remember liking. I just remember intense gore and again strong fantasy imagery, just otherworldly stuff.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um, but when Zed is introduced to the renegades, he's taken to see the eldest man who's stuck in bed and barely remembers anything.
mm,
And they discuss things, and the eldest calls him Death,
mm.
and he could bring death to them. And all the renegades react like Zed is the savior because he can bring death.
Mm,
And later on in the film, others call him the liberator, and then it goes back to the being called death. And there's a reverence for him, even though
mm.
they're chasing him around at high speed, trying to kill him. But some people, more and more people, are saying, "Oh, he can bring death. It's a great thing,"
Mm.
showing the society kind of dissolving.
Yeah, they. It's. I did struggle. You might be surprised to hear that I did struggle to follow some aspects of the film. The internal politics of the Eternals was somewhat difficult to me at some point. Um, I mean, as I gathered, they were interested in him just because he had managed to do the weird thing of getting into their vortex, which they're not meant to.
Mhm.
Um, or rather, he isn't meant to. So they're fascinated by that, and then they looked at him and found out that he had interesting genetics, so they wanted to study that. And through that, a character called May was clearly starting to get a bit more fascinated with him. But they keep him around. They see him as a primitive. They want him to effectively be a servant. But he unnerves them, and I think it's his vitalism unnerves them. But there's clearly a faction who, from the start, want him to bring death.
Yeah, and
I
there's
mean,
another
if
faction that just wants to kill him outright to preserve the. May sets it up, and it's they do the psychic vote through Tabernacle.
mm,
It's vote. Do you want him to die, or should I be allowed to study him for 7 days? And May takes him under his wing as a servant
mm,
after the vote. They allow him to be studied for 7 days. And They check out his genetics, they check out his mind. He's able to resist their psychic calls
Hmm.
somewhat.
Yeah,
And
I'm thinking of that. Are you thinking of the scene where he sort of goes under the sheet?
yeah,
A lot of the Eternals are sort of meditating, I think, under sheets. The symbolism of that I am not sure of, but he goes under the sheet with May, and when he does that, she starts to get a bit awakened. Let's say she starts to get a bit passionate. She's being sort of converted to the cause. She's becoming more alive.
mhm.
And that's when Charlotte Rampling, I believe her name is Consuela.
Consuela.
Yes, comes and they have that bit of tug. They're literally having a tugging battle over the sheet. I am sure there is symbolism in that. I don't understand it, I'm afraid. Apologies. This film needs dissection. I'm sure you could make sense of all of it. Maybe
It's
that's a bold claim, but at that point he resists the psychic struggle, and then it gets weirder from there. But I think it's part of their dynamic of they viewed themselves way above him and him as just some primitive, and that slowly gets turned around. It really made me think of Brave New World,
uh,
when the savage is brought in and they start to the idea of sort of who's a mindless primitive, who's got no value is turned on its head a little bit. I wonder if that idea was sort of floating around in the mix here.
well, she's May basically says he's superior in every way to them, but that must be hidden, and she's going to keep it to herself.
Mm,
Um, it's one of those, and then you find out later that Zardoz, Arthur Friend, has been breeding the brutes to become superior men, and Zed is the pinnacle of that because Arthur Friend teaches him how to read. And I devoured all the books, and then he showed me one last book, and I wanted to destroy it. And it turns out it's the origin of the name of Zardoz, which is the Wizard of Oz.
mm,
Everything is phony. It's the little man disguised as a big voice manipulating everybody.
mm.
And that's basically what it is.
I couldn't help but laugh at the. I'm sorry, I'm ruined by Futurama, but when he's learning, he's learning reading everything. I couldn't help but say, and all with the books from my local library.
Yeah,
I couldn't help it, but I thought that's a really good idea. That's quite a cool reveal.
yeah. It's and then there's Friends
Mm,
home, temple, museum, what have you, all the statues of kings and gods, and when all the people are out with torches looking for Zed and they hide him in the back of Friend's house. And Consuela, Charlotte Rampling, walks in. They're like, they flinch. No, we've got to save him. And it's like, okay. And then the crowd finds him, and it's Zed's like, get behind me, hide in my aura. And he pushes everybody back with
mm.
telekinesis and reforms all the broken pottery and the broken statues. That was just weird. But it's showing that Zed is the superior man.
Yeah, he's. I mean, they literally say you are the one. Prescient man. Yeah, I thought the stuff with them having the hall full of old gods. It made me think like what it was trying to say was I just got this vibe of the power of narrative, the need for a narrative. Like they'd stored theirs away, they'd stored all the old gods away, but there's still a power in it. Like people need a narrative, they need a myth about themselves. hence Arthur Thrane using the Wizard of Oz. Like, it does a job. It does a job.
And then
Mm.
he manages to he goes into Tabernacle and gets trained on all the it's you must inseminate us, give us your seed, go into the Tabernacle. And while he's viewing the Tabernacle, all the women breed with him while they're teaching him everything they know. That cannot be shown.
Yeah, we can't get that. We can't get that on YouTube, I'm afraid. Like, I don't think we've emphasized enough how many boobs are in this movie. It is wall to wall. And I mean, some of it very creatively, I thought. Like, the section where the knowledge is being shared and the knowledge is what's the word?
Imposed over every woman.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's
imposed,
imposed over
projected.
Zed's face, but every woman's body is covered with the knowledge, whether it be math or music or poetry or computer code.
But in that, and at that point, like, the color was, I thought, again, quite vital.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once again, there was a drive to it. Like, this interesting blend of like sexuality, but also culture and knowledge was flooding back.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of thing that you just didn't see in the very sterile, consensus-based community the Eternals had been living in. But in that scene in the Tabernacle, it was very lively again.
Yeah.
This film has interesting ideas.
Well, at that point,
and it's also the trippiest sequence. But there is a logic to it. You're seeing all these endless reflections, and that's because mentally he's inside the Tabernacle. You've been told that everyone else is in there. They're all linked to it. So yeah, that's why you see them reflected inside there. It's not random imagery. It's trippy as heck, but Borman has a reason to be doing it.
Yeah. And then once he breaks free from the Tabernacle with all the knowledge, that's when the chase out of the Temple Museum and his supporters, his followers, May and the apathetic women, he tells them, head east, get out. Well, while he's in the Tabernacle, he crashes the head into the dome. And then he tells May and the apathetics to leave by the east and get out, and you can live your life. And there's a wall around it. At one point, he keeps trying to escape, and you see him press up against the glass. But he signals the exterminators on the outside every time he does it. And when May and the women escape, then all the people who are against Zed form up around the pool and start doing the second level meditation, sharing, and we must stop this. And all the executioners storm in and start shooting people.
Who are happy to die, Then
some were. Friend gets shot, but we were having fun. It was all in fun. He falls over dead. And then Zed.
Oh, I've taken it as they were okay with it.
Yeah. Zed and Consuelo run and hide in the head, and the executioners finish the job on the people who wanted to stay and blow up the building and pop all the bubbles. Then it goes to the shot of Zed and Consuelo sitting on the thrones inside the head, and
dressed in green, I note.
green velvet finery,
Uh-huh.
and
Very relevant to The
the
Wizard
age
of
the
Oz.
son is born, the son grows older, the son leaves to find his way in the world, and then they grow old and
Mm.
older and then die, and they're left with skeletons and credit rolls.
Yes. And you're there sort of, oh, well, whilst the seventh, Beethoven's seventh plays out, gorgeous.
Yeah.
But there was, even in, in that sequence, there was something so true about when the son they'd had was a man and gets up to leave, and Consuelo reaches out to sort of bring him back. It was like that motherly impulse to sort of, no, 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 stay back, stay here,
And then
and
Zed takes her hand and lets
corrects her.
the child go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Zed recognizing, no, you can't have safety. If you're going to be alive, you have to have risk. But that just struck me as so true. And I love that. It's one of those things that when you're watching modern movies, that aspect you just, I think, would not see. You either wouldn't see it represented or you would see it deliberately inverted. But I think Borman knows what he's doing there. That and the detail, like they are dressed in emerald greens, like the Emerald City, etc., because it is inspired by The Wizard of Oz. And then they're just leaving behind their prints on the inside of the cave and the old pistol.
Yeah.
But I think the point is, like, there is a new vitality because the sun has gone off. I also took it that the former apathetics, who had found a sort of new life, were probably going to go off and breed again.
Oh yeah.
Or possibly they already, from the knowledge sharing session, they already had Zed's seed in them. I don't know if you had a take on that. It's a weird sequence. It's hard to say for definite what's happening.
They get kicked out of Eden and are able to breed and repopulate the earth.
Yeah, I'll go for that. Yeah, they left. They did not stay. They did not stay.
Yep. This was a trippy movie.
I'm trying, I'm making the case. I instantly, I'm trying to go for the deeper symbolical readings. But at the same time, this is a film that just had us watching to see if Sean Connery would get a boner when being shown soapy boobs. And then was it mud wrestling was and quite gratuitous mud wrestling, if you don't mind me saying.
Mud wrestling. Well, the first one was just
good old
a
shower
lot of
time.
naked necking, and then the mud wrestling, and then it went to various other shots, and then it went to just the oscilloscope bars and the music playing, and that's where he got aroused.
He's a music fan. But he was also looking at Charlotte Rampling, so I think we can understand that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
So I think, by the way, she was great in this. When I'd seen June Part 2, was it last weekend? And she's in there as a reverend mother, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's a long career. And she'd also 2 years ago, 2 years before Zardoz, do you remember she was in Asylum, which we covered as part of the anthology series? She was in that.
Yes.
Yeah, Britt Eklund was her imaginary friend. What I'm trying to get at is we are never going to complain about an excess of Charlotte Rampling.
Yeah. Which you almost got in this one.
You got a little bit. The character playing May was interesting. I mean, we also got this, so it's a mixed bag. Some people were of the opinion that Sean Connery maybe wasn't the most invested in this film. I don't know if I go for that. I mean, he seems like he's pretty game for a laugh.
Yeah, I don't think he. Afterwards, I don't think he enjoyed the meme fame. Zardoz is a classic, but that's just.
I'm getting us some Charlotte Rampling, and that's quite explicit. Okay, let's get a Charlotte Rampling that we can actually display. This is difficult. I'm sure there's one photo of her I can show from this movie,
well,
but it is not
the
easy.
throne room and the. If you have the shot of them sitting in the stone head on the thrones.
I do, but she's topless.
Oh, you didn't
Yeah,
grab the
this.
one in the full. Okay,
I didn't
never
grab
mind.
it. I thought I'd be able. I'll edit one in, but like I say, this film saved a lot on the costume budget. If you get me. All right, I've got one here. We're going to go with this one. Everyone is pretty clothed in this. There we go. We'll enjoy ourselves a bit of Charlotte Rampling here while he's just pondering his orb. Yeah. I had a what? So I can't really vouch for this myself because I haven't seen it. But Murgoot, have you seen The Prisoner, the old TV show, not the
Oh
Ian
yeah,
McKellen one?
all the episodes, including the one that was very hard to find in the U.S. I managed to get my hands on a copy of it.
Oh,
The final episode.
that was hard to get in the US?
For a while, yeah.
Oh. What was the issue there, if you remember?
I have no clue.
Fair play. One of the mysteries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that we had a news story recently about an episode of Star Trek that was effectively banned. Basically, the BBC cut it out from circulation because data referred to was it the Unified Irish Republic, basically implying that the Irish situation that was very complex in the 70s and 90s resolved in favour of the IRA, which is an interesting one. Pretty based, Star Trek, pretty based, not going to lie. So it could happen. Anyway, I raised The Prisoner just because I really wondered if that was an influence on this as well. Just with the way you've got the moving to a weird sort of village, old school English style village country manor setting, and an odd society there. It just made me think, oh, okay, maybe a little bit of The Prisoner went into the mix as well for John Borman when he was
Well,
creating this.
they get Zed trapped in the bubble with herbs of clarity or whatever it was, the one that would prevent them from messing with his mind. And then they start beating on him, and it's you can't get out. And then he punches it and busts out of the bubble, and they all freak out because he is able.
Well, I think it was probably made for people there who, were not, well, they're not super masculine, they're not very vital. It's made for their limitations, not his. He spent all his day riding out, hunting, exterminating, eating meat, becoming a bit of a Chad.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of the bubble monster retrieving number 6 at that point.
Course. Yeah. So it could be a bit of an overlap. I mean, Borman, I feel, has drawn from quite a few sources in making this. As I said, I think there's Brave New World in this. I think there's 2001 in this, with the debate with the tabernacle being a bit like the debate with hell. We've got some of the prisoner energy. The idea of the dystopia is there. It sounds like Paul Ehrlich's Population Bomb is featured in.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very wide net cast in this film. I think a very wide net indeed. And some really quite surprising ideas in it that would, I think, not come out of a major studio today. They're sort of effectively anti-rational, I would say, idea. Like, they are ruled by a tabernacle, which is super rational, gives them all the knowledge, and all it results is this incredibly sterile society that is not worth living in. and everything is sort of dumbed down and lifeless. And what you need is just this massive Chad figure to just come in and kick the door down, bust in like the I forget the meme, the Kool-Aid guy. Is it Kool-Aid guy who busts in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
there we
busts
go.
through the wall.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool lesson to fit into a movie. It was not what I expected at all from this.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild ride.
I mean, the opening, he just spits out guns.
Yeah,
Spits out guns and bullets.
the gun is good. The penis is bad. The penis is evil.
Isn't that the? I mean, I won't say that's Democratic Party manifesto, but oh wait, they don't like guns.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Cheap joke and punditry. I apologize, folks. I apologize. No. Interesting vision. I think if people come to this, possibly coming for the meme, possibly coming for a chuckle, like you will get a chuckle. You will get some very bawdy scenes, but there's also fascinating stuff in here.
Yeah, Borman brings up a lot just to contemplate on. It's mortality, immortality, overpopulation, shelter versus experience. It's asexuality.
And what else? What else? Oh, cut off from the bunker. Oh dear. No, communications broke down in the bunker. It must be the incident affecting comms. Yes. Okay. Sorry, Murgoot, as you were saying.
Oh, thank God for editing. But yeah. No, this is a trippy movie. To get down to it, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more on the second watch, and then I rewatched it again today and picked up on even more just subtle bits. Just to start wrapping up, I'd give it 7 burgers with 2 tabs of blotter acid, but
I think fair. The score for this is going to change hugely on the conditions you watch it in. I'd say if you're a teenager watching it with your parents, it's a 0 burger and you will want to die inside. Somewhere around the 17th or 18th soapy boob scene, you'll probably just want to not exist. If you're watching it for a laugh with people, yeah, solid 6. If you're doing it on the rewatch and you're able to, and you can sort of take a little time to focus on some other stuff, I think you get a lot more from it. I think 7, maybe even an 8. I lean towards 8, almost just to say, folks, give it a try. We complain about boring movies, repetitive movies, standardized studio products. This is 100% not a standardized studio product. This has gone absolutely rogue. You know, this did those two blotters of acid, swigged a bottle of ketchup and ran out the door. We don't know where it's going, but you probably want to follow it and just see it's okay.
Watch it just for the memes.
Come for the memes, stay for the themes. How about that?
Yeah, that'd work.
Yeah, it is just you and me at the moment, Murgoot. I do have that secret theory. I've got an inkling that our good friend, that crime guy, put this on and got to the head saying the penis is good before bathing rifles and said, no, I'm out of here.
The gun is good. The penis is evil. Oh
TCG,
no!
no, come back. The masks, they have two faces on both sides. It's like Janus. TCG, it's symbolism for betrayal. TCG, come back. There are boobs. Nah, didn't work. Didn't work. Maybe we'll get him for another transmission from the bunker. But
Yeah, he was definitely. He probably watched it. Jack came in the room and he kicked Jack out and turned it on.
do not watch this
I
film with your
gave
kids.
warning that yeah, you'll be kicking your kids out of the room for this one.
I swear it's got good artistic ideals, guys. I swear. Yeah. Genuinely, come for the memes, stay for the themes. I'd call it an 8. It's interesting, worth watching. Yeah, there's a load of cheese on it. Probably quite a few of Sean Connery's chest hairs snuck in, but I don't regret watching this in the least. I had a good time. I was surprised to find myself really enjoying it and trying to decode it. Like, I mean, it could have just done the Wizard of Oz thing, and it did that for a bit, and then it had its own ideas. Like the scene where he's first exploring inside their camp, and he's seeing the study with the sort of evolutionary chart on the walls. It's a lot like Dorothy going into the traveling entertainer's wagon for the first time. There's that kind of parallel for
What
that.
about the tabernacle ring?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh,
Showing
there's a bit with a tabernacle ring. It's doing its projections, and it projects an eye onto his forehead, like a third eye.
yeah,
Woman, you mad genius! I know what you're doing. Yeah, we should maybe just talk about that quickly. We're going to wrap up pretty soon, but yeah, the tabernacle ring I really enjoyed.
yeah, just watching him slap it to prevent it from showing him anything, letting it off, just seeing random stuff, seeing the food inventories and what they need to trade, him just being fascinated by that. And it starts showing various foodstuffs, and he slaps it and covers it up,
Mm.
and eventually throws it back in the box. Yeah, that was an interesting scene.
I want to say that was done so well for introducing us to the technology. I think like a weaker writer would have had him sort of say something and trigger the thing and then just do a full dialogue with it where it explains everything to him. But at that point in the film, we don't know what he knows, and he just behaves like he is encountering something entirely novel. And they just do the world building through showing and not telling.
Mm-hmm.
Just excellent. You build up the picture of what it is, but you don't expect him to work it out. There's kind of a small sci-fi series by a woman called Rosemary Kirsteiner. I don't believe she ever finished it. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Journeywoman, the Journeywoman series. And it's, by the way, spoilers for this if you're ever going to read it, but there's a similar thing where you kind of think you're in a fantasy setting, but then realize the wizards are actually using technology. And you're like, hang on, wait, no, she's encountering a computer here. What the heck?
Similar to Andre Norton's Witch World.
Oh, intriguing. Andre Norton's Watchwell, thank you. Yeah,
the
I
whole
need that
series.
recommendation because Kirsteiner didn't finish the series. She wrote 4 books, and I think she had a health scare, and she's still alive, thank goodness. But yeah, 15 years later, we do not have a follow-up. Although I might check her website, but if it hasn't come in 15 years, I think we're probably getting a George R.R. Martin sitch. I should not go into that. We've done our scores. The design of this film is gorgeous. Tabernacle design is great. It's trippy. It's a combination of very different sources, but it's come out as something extremely original. It's a watch from me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, especially the after second viewing, just The first time it was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The second time around, it made a lot more sense.
Absolutely. And let this serve as proof, and I probably should not say this, we're asking for trouble here, but let this serve as proof that for members, when you sign up here as a member and make a request, we will fulfill that request to review a film of your choice. Even if it's eventually I've got a good clearance rate on that. I've got a clearance rate. We got this, and we have, I believe, The Mask of the Red Death was the next request that I had to do. So I might tie that up with some good old Vincent Price posting. But yeah, this is sort of unplanned incident-related broadcast from the bunker. This isn't sort of the regular wheelhouse, but I hope this was interesting commentary. And Ede, I hope you really enjoyed what we've covered here. I know you've asked quite a few people to talk about Zardoz, so I hope we came at this from an interesting angle. Although I suppose if you ask 12 people to cover this, you're probably going to see a little bit of crossover. But I hope we came at it from an interesting angle for you. But I think that is everything for this stream. Hopefully things will be back to normal next week. Keep an eye out for social media where I'll do announcements of what is coming up next. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, of course, Murgoot.
And thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was a hoot. I got those disaster feelings, and then I had a good time. All right. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.